What happens when you notice something no one else can see? When you sense the truth behind people's words, cracks behind society's perfect mask, and no one believes you. This is not just an ability, it's a dangerous burden. And if you don't understand how to handle it, can turn your gift into your downfall. Today, we'll uncover the hidden danger of seeing what others don't and how to survive it. There is a peculiar solitude that belongs only to those who see too much, not in the sense of witnessing more events than others, but in perceiving layers of reality that most pass by without a second thought. For them, life is not simply what is shown on the surface. It is a vast tapestry of subtle threads, invisible to the casual eye, woven with meaning that is often uncomfortable to acknowledge. They notice how a friend's cheerful tone is laced with tension, how an unspoken truth sits heavily in a family's silence, how a leader's charm is a calculated shield against scrutiny. The world to them is not a static painting but a shifting stage, where the real drama unfolds behind the curtain. This kind of vision does not arrive all at once. It often emerges gradually, as if reality is pulling back its own veil inch by inch. At first, it may feel like a gift. To be more aware, more attuned, more awake. There is a subtle thrill in recognizing what others miss, in seeing the deeper lines beneath the drawing everyone else accepts as finished. Yet as the perception sharpens, the distance from others widens. Conversations that once felt engaging now feel hollow. Jokes that once brought laughter reveal themselves as masks for something darker. Social gatherings become less about connection and more about observing the strange theater of human interaction. Those who live without this heightened awareness find it hard to imagine what it's like. They can enjoy the comfort of shared illusions, the stability of believing the world is exactly as it appears. They walk in step with the crowd, unaware of the invisible patterns that guide them. But for the one who sees, this comfort is no longer possible. They have stepped outside the circle and can never re-enter without pretending not to know what they know. And this pretending, over time, becomes unbearable. The distance is not simply physical, but existential. A gulf in understanding that no amount of explanation can fully bridge. It is not that others are incapable of seeing. Rather, most do not want to. Seeing clearly demands responsibility. It demands the dismantling of cherished illusions, the courage to face truths that are messy, inconvenient, and sometimes terrifying. To accept such truths would require them to change, to alter the way they live, the way they relate to others, the way they understand themselves. And change, for most, is far more threatening than remaining blind. So when someone tries to speak of what they have noticed, they are often met not with curiosity, but with resistance, denial, or even hostility. This creates a profound tension. The one who sees is not only alone in their awareness, but is also subtly pushed to the margins for it. People may avoid them without fully understanding why, sensing in them an unsettling quality. In some cases, they may be accused of overthinking, imagining problems, or being too critical. The irony is that such accusations often come from those who intuitively feel the truth but refuse to face it. The seer becomes a mirror, reflecting back what others do not wish to acknowledge. And so the mirror is blamed rather than the reality it reveals. The burden lies not only in holding the truth, but in holding it alone. There is no shared weight, no collective voice to validate what is seen. This solitude can grow heavy, pressing into the mind like a constant reminder that understanding often comes at the expense of belonging. And yet, to turn away from what is seen would feel like a betrayal of one's own mind, a retreat into falsehood. So they walk this narrow path, eyes open, aware that the cost of clarity is the loss of the warm shelter of ignorance. When a truth threatens the foundations of a shared belief, the collective instinct is rarely to examine it with openness. Instead, the reflex is to defend the structure at all costs, even if that structure rests upon illusions. People are not drawn together simply by facts. They are bound by stories, myths, and agreements about how the world should be seen. These agreements create a sense of order and belonging, and anything that disrupts them feels like a direct assault on the safety of the group. In such an environment, the individual who sees differently is not merely someone with another perspective. They are perceived as a threat to the very cohesion that holds the collective together. This resistance to uncomfortable truths is not born purely from malice or ignorance. It is deeply rooted in human psychology. Societies, families, and communities build protective walls around their shared narratives. These walls keep chaos at bay, shielding members from the uncertainty and vulnerability that would come if those narratives were questioned too deeply. The moment someone points out the cracks in these walls, it is as though they have opened a door to the unknown, and the instinctive reaction of the collective is to slam it shut. People will ridicule the one who opened it, accuse them of being dangerous, unstable, or arrogant. In extreme cases, history shows us how visionaries have been exiled, silenced, or destroyed, not because they were wrong, but because they were unwilling to maintain the illusion. At the heart of this denial is fear. Fear that the truth may require personal responsibility. Fear that old ways of living will no longer work. Fear that long-cherished identities or values may be shown to be hollow. Facing the truth often demands transformation, and transformation is one of the most uncomfortable experiences a human being can endure. So, rather than confront it, the collective will project its discomfort onto the truth teller, making them the villain in a story that should have been about liberation. This is why people who see beyond the surface so often find themselves in conflict, not with the falsehood itself, but with the protectors of the falsehood. There is also a paradox at play. Many within the collective can sense, deep in their subconscious, that something is amiss. They might feel the dissonance between what they are told and what they intuitively know. Yet, to acknowledge this fully would threaten their sense of stability. Instead, they find comfort in dismissing the voice that speaks what they already suspect. They cling to the crowd because in numbers there is safety. Safety feels preferable to the lonely path of truth. This is why the person who speaks honestly can become a symbol of discomfort, even hatred, in the minds of those who secretly know they are right. The danger for the one who sees is that the collective does not fight with reason but with instinct, and instinct can be ruthless. The more their vision challenges the existing order, the more resistance they face. At first, it might appear as mild dismissal, but over time, if the truth threatens something sacred to the group's identity, the reaction can escalate to open hostility. The truth teller may find themselves excluded from conversations, stripped of influence, or quietly discredited. The group may rewrite events to portray them as misguided or malicious, ensuring that others will not follow their example. For the one who sees, this is a uniquely dangerous terrain. They must navigate a world where their clarity makes them visible, but visibility invites attack. They are placed in a position where every word and action is measured against the fragile comfort of the collective, and any misstep can be seized upon as proof of their supposed wrongness. The greatest irony is that in many cases, the collective is not defending truth at all, rather the fragile scaffolding that hides it from view. Yet the scaffolding is, for them, life itself, and they will fight to preserve it. The threat of collective denial is not simply about being ignored, it is about being actively opposed by those whose unity depends on not seeing what you see. It is a form of silent warfare, waged not with weapons but with dismissal, distortion, and the quiet turning away of faces you once knew. The individual is left standing outside the circle, aware that the truth has not been destroyed, only hidden again beneath the comforting weight of agreement. The collective continues its rhythm, as if nothing was ever wrong, while the one who tried to speak watches the door close, knowing it may not open again in their lifetime. To see reality more clearly than others is not merely a shift in knowledge. It is a transformation in the way one experiences existence itself. This clarity cuts through illusions and reveals both beauty and brutality in their rawest forms. It is like stepping from a dimly lit room into the unfiltered glare of daylight. At first, there is a sense of empowerment, as though one has been given the rare privilege of understanding what lies beneath the surface. The longer one stands in that light, the more exhausting it becomes. Awareness, when sustained, is heavy. It demands a constant engagement with complexity, a refusal to retreat into comforting simplifications. And for the one who is awake, there is no easy way to unsee what has been seen. The mind that perceives deeply is like a finely tuned instrument, sensitive to every note, every vibration in the environment. This sensitivity makes it impossible to ignore contradictions that others glide past. A conversation that appears warm and friendly to the casual observer may feel loaded with hidden tensions to the one who sees. They notice the hesitation in someone's voice, the subtle flicker of avoidance in their eyes, the quiet fractures in relationships that others believe are whole. These constant recognitions take their toll. They prevent the mind from ever fully resting in a false sense of harmony, and the resulting strain can feel like a weight pressing against the chest day after day. There is also a unique emotional fatigue that comes from holding contradictions without resolution. Most people find comfort in choosing a side, in declaring something entirely good or entirely bad, right or wrong. But the one who sees clearly understands that reality is rarely that simple. They witness kindness intertwined with selfishness, love tangled with control, progress built upon exploitation. This complexity can be intellectually satisfying, but emotionally it can erode certainty, Living with such paradoxes requires a resilience that is difficult to sustain because the mind is constantly negotiating between opposing truths. Over time, this can leave one feeling fractured, caught between the urge to speak and the knowledge that few will understand. The cost of being awake is not just mental but emotional. Seeing deeper means feeling deeper, moments of beauty, a sudden kindness from a stranger, the silent dignity of nature, strike with a vividness that can move one to tears. But so too do moments of cruelty, hypocrisy, and loss. There is no protective filter to dull the edges. The joy is more intense, but so is the sorrow. This emotional amplification can make life feel fuller, but also more overwhelming. Without careful grounding, the weight of this heightened perception can tilt toward despair, leaving the mind restless and wary. In this state, isolation can creep in silently. Conversations with others often require a form of self-censorship because to express the full scope of one's perception is to risk alienation. Many learn to share only fragments of what they see, to dilute the truth so it is more palatable. Yet this suppression comes with its own cost, a quiet erosion of authenticity. Over time, one can begin to feel as though they are living in two worlds, the world as it is, and the world as it is presented to the majority. This division is exhausting to maintain, and the tension it creates can manifest as anxiety, sleeplessness, or a deep sense of disconnection from the rhythms of ordinary life. The danger lies in how easily this heightened awareness can turn inward, becoming self-destructive. When the world resists change, when truths are dismissed or denied, the one who sees may begin to question themselves. Doubt takes root. Perhaps the patterns they notice are imagined. Perhaps the discomfort they feel is weakness rather than clarity. This inner conflict can be as draining as the perception itself because it pits the mind against its own intuition. And yet, even in doubt, the truths remain, quietly pressing against the edges of consciousness, demanding to be acknowledged once more. The challenge for the one who sees what others cannot is not merely to endure the weight of perception, but to learn how to carry it in a way that transforms it from a burden into a source of strength. Clarity without stability can lead to collapse, yet clarity with discipline can become a form of quiet power. The difference lies in where the energy of awareness is directed. When it is spent entirely on convincing others to see, it is met with frustration, resistance, and inevitable alienation. But when it is redirected inward, toward shaping one's own path, refining judgment, and deepening inner resilience, it becomes a foundation that cannot be easily shaken by external forces. There is a temptation for those with heightened perception to act as constant truth tellers, confronting others with what they do not wish to acknowledge. This impulse often comes from a place of sincerity, but it is also a trap. Forcing sight upon the unwilling rarely changes minds. More often, it triggers defense, denial, and hostility. The wiser path is to accept that not every truth is meant to be spoken to everyone, and that the timing of revelation matters as much as the content. In this sense, the one who sees must cultivate the art of discernment, knowing when to remain silent, when to speak, and when to simply observe. Such discernment is not weakness. It is strategy. It is the recognition that power lies not in the constant display of one's perception, but in the selective use of it. Just as a skilled warrior does not swing their weapon at every shadow, the one who sees learns to choose their battles carefully. This protects their energy from being drained in endless conflict and allows them to direct their clarity toward goals that truly matter. By conserving strength in this way, they can move through the world without becoming embittered by the refusal of others to understand. Another step in transforming vision into strength is the cultivation of inner anchoring. The more clearly one sees, the more one is exposed to chaos, contradiction, and hidden ugliness. Without a strong inner framework, this can easily lead to despair. Anchoring comes from building unshakable values, a personal code that serves as a compass when the external world appears fractured. It is this internal stability that prevents deep perception from turning into cynicism. When the world resists change, the anchored individual is not pulled into hopelessness. They simply adjust their course, maintaining clarity without surrendering to bitterness. There is also the matter of solitude. Many see isolation as a byproduct of heightened awareness, but it can also be a source of refinement. Time spent alone allows the mind to process what has been perceived without the constant noise of collective influence. It gives space for insight to mature, for patterns to reveal themselves fully, and for the individual to determine how best to use what they know. Solitude, when embraced rather than feared, can become a training ground for strength, a place where vision is sharpened and the capacity to act upon it is fortified. Most importantly, turning vision into strength requires a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing awareness as an alienating force that cuts them off from others, the individual can view it as a tool for navigation. In a world full of hidden motives and unspoken dynamics, clarity becomes a survival skill. It allows one to avoid traps, to anticipate consequences, to protect oneself from manipulation, and to see opportunities invisible to those still lost in illusion. In this way, the gift that once felt like a burden becomes an asset, not because the world has changed, but because the way one moves through it has. To see what others do not is to walk a narrow path between light and shadow. It is a gift that reveals beauty others overlook, yet also a weight that exposes fractures they cannot bear to acknowledge. The one who sees will know the quiet ache of solitude, the sharp sting of rejection, and the constant pull between speaking the truth and guarding it in silence. They will face the resistance of the collective, the exhaustion of carrying complexity, and the temptation to doubt the very clarity that sets them apart. Yet within this challenge lies the possibility of transformation. The danger of such sight is real, but so is its power. If the one who sees learns to anchor themselves, to choose their battles, and to channel their perception into strength rather than despair, their vision becomes more than just a private burden, it becomes a compass. In a world built on fragile illusions, they become unshaken not because the world is safe, because they have learned to navigate it with eyes wide open. And while they may never fully return to the comfort of the crowd, they carry something far more enduring, the quiet, unyielding freedom of one who has learned to see and still chooses to walk forward.